We're here at the winter meetings in Orlando with Derrick Goold. Derrick is the famous beat writer for the St. Louis Post Dispatch. Derrick, what's your first experience with baseball simulation games growing up in Colorado?
My dad introduced me to Ethan Allen's All-Star Baseball, which was the disc and the spinner game. He played it a lot as a youth. We found some of his discs and cards from when he was a kid, and we were able to then, at a local toy store or something, find the new release of the game. So it was the players that I knew: Ricky Henderson, Don Mattingly, Bo Jackson, all these. The new version eventually had like a Babe Ruth tucked into it, which I am suspicious because my father said that he always got to draft Babe Ruth. He said that as a rule, which now I'm looking back on as I'm talking to you, that maybe that was rigged and I was too young to pick up on that.
Now, what age were you?
Oh gosh, pretty young. I mean, just into school, if that. All-Star Baseball helped me learn math in a lot of ways, because it was like, not only did I play the spinners, and first introduction to it was a chance to learn like the classic players. I remember Roy Sievers was one of my best players,
Washington.
And I had no reason to know who he was except for his disc was awesome, and I was pretty little at that time. But what it did was it informed like my feel for baseball, because you get a real sense playing All-Star Baseball how important doubles and damage, what we call damage now, are, and getting on base, and how much that adds to the whole thing, not just the singles, right? So you got to get a feel for like on base percentage and slugging before they ever appeared on baseball cards.
Right.
But it also quite honestly is how I learned some math, because if you wanted to make discs yourself, you had to know how to take the stats and then put them on a circle to do all the math to do that. And my parents...
It's almost like geometry, right?
It's exactly like geometry. It's percentages, it's rates, it's carving it up. I mean, I had a protractor out and I would do all that. And my parents really encouraged me to do that. So it gave me a real cool connection to the game. Because as you mentioned, like when I was a kid in Colorado, to date myself here, there wasn't Major League Baseball.
Right.
And so my relationship with Major League Baseball was replaying games and drafting teams and playing out whole seasons with my dad and friends.
Your own baseball world.
Yeah, our own kind of team. And then we'd watch games on TV, and then I had games through the newspaper, which maybe explains a little bit about the career that I've had, that like baseball was just always constantly through the newspaper.
That's great. So you played the Dynasty League Baseball powered by Pursue the Pennant board game with Matthew Leach. You played it with a while ago. Who's now the beat writer for the Twins. You played with your son Ian.
Yeah.
And you've also played the online version with Kevin Wheeler and some of the other
with you at one point.
With me, right? Yeah. Exactly. So let's start with the board game. What are your impressions of the game? Kind of open-ended. Just give me your thoughts.
No, I've always enjoyed it. It's always good for a little plot twist. The wild play, the unplanned, unscripted moment. We've had. I've played it with some other friends, or some actually friends who are like board game aficionados, and also have some interest in baseball, but a lot of interest in strategy. So I played it with them too. And there's always just that kind of wrinkle that the roll of the dice creates, that gives that game the unscripted, unexpected plot twist. I've really enjoyed that. At times you can play a real. There's a lot of different gears that you can play the game at. You can play it through with kind of speed and results as your goal. You can play it through with strategy and and sort of the minutia as your goal. You can enjoy the game in multiple different tracks that way. And
that's interesting.
You mentioned the people that I play it with, and sometimes there were like speed games, like how do we get through this? And then there's other times where we would talk about like different outcomes and then reverse engineer, and we do that. I've done that a few times with my son, just because we wanted to get kind of like in the guts of a baseball game, like what would happen if you
second guessing the manager, right?
Yeah, essentially. Or like playing out other outcomes. Right. What if you had gone this route with this pinch hitter at this time? Not to say it would have worked, but what would that look
What
like?
would that
and what would
happen?
be-
Yeah.
and so we've done that in different ways too. So I like those aspects of it. It's a very nimble game that can suit either what time you have or what interests you have. But it doesn't have to. It's not linear at all. It's not like you sit down and play the same game because the roll of the dice can be fluky. They can be fun. They can throw excuse the pun, a curveball at you, but you can also control the style of game you play.
Right. And there's like so many subtleties, so much depth in the game, right?
Absolutely, lots of details.
It can take so many different twists. I always say that when you go to a baseball game, there's one play that stands out that maybe you never saw before, right?
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, and then it can happen, right?
Yeah.
So, like one of the bizarre plays is the home run off Jose Canseco's head, but the wall has to be short enough in order for it to happen, right? So you have to check that.
Yeah.
So, but like it's going to happen, like once in like 10, 15 years, right? But it may happen.
I think I lost the game once on a bizarre play triple.
Oh wow!
That my son beat me with, and it was both like, what the heck? But also it was fun to watch him because he was younger at the time.
Yeah.
But,
his reaction.
Fun to watch like him go, oh my gosh, this is possible.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
Something bad bounce, something crazy. Could happen.
And what about the online version? Our big thing when we came out with the online version is multiplayer.
Yeah.
So it was designed to play against other people, especially draft leagues.
Yeah.
And it really revolutionized draft leagues, and that is still our biggest play mode. Is the draft leagues and private draft leagues. People get together. They either play our official rules or they have some altered version of the rules, right? And they are the most hardcore fans. Right now, I just finished the 2025 season player cards, and everyone's chomping at the bit to see them. I just like.
That's cool.
So, but tell us about your impressions on the online.
I think it's accessible. The interface is really good. Just what you can and what you're able to do. My experience is more with the tabletop than the online. But when I played the online version, it just was very intuitive, like how to get involved in it and how to play it. And I could see how you would, play at a distance. It'd give you a chance to instead of. There's no real way for me to have played All-Star Baseball with my dad at a distance.
Exactly.
This is a game you can play at a distance, if you want to continue.
Or you can play with Ian at USC, right?
That's right. Yeah, I can play with him at college. Though he should be studying.
That's right.
So I think that I like the presentation of it. There's a real kind of vibrancy to it. It puts you. It gives you such access to numerous things that you can pull off that it's just not there in a lot of other games. You think about like Football Manager, very popular, the soccer manager game, very similar in that regard, where like just the number of things that you can control, create, and then shape the game. And you can get a little competitive with it too because of that head-to-head factor.
Exactly. So finally, I just want to talk about my experience after the end of the World Series when the Rangers won. Josh Boyd, literally within, hours of them winning, he sends me off a message in LinkedIn thanking me for basically creating the game.
Oh, that's
which
cool.
Kind of blows me away, right? Because that's not like what I'm expecting. He's probably just drinking the champagne, right? But he thought about me.
That's awesome.
And he told me that how much it meant in his furthering his career. Like that was a key part. Playing the game, he learned so much about baseball. And he's assistant general manager, right? So he learned so much about baseball. So there's so many other examples of players, actual major league managers.
Sure.
On the Cardinals side, I had a chance to play with Brian Jordan,
that's
Andy
great.
Van Slyke, Tito Landrum, all three of them, and sit down and play a whole game. So it was fun playing with them. So just kind of wondering, your thoughts about the effect that baseball simulations have had on Major League Baseball, players, GMs, managers.
Immeasurable. You just think of all sorts of it. You go back I mean, you're basically asking, like, what effect did the box score have on baseball? That's effectively what you're asking. The box score had a great effect on baseball.
Yes.
It gave us a way to quantify the contributions to the game. So then you say, like, what did sim games have? What affected it? Well, sim games allow you to find out the guts and the mechanics and the route things go to get to a box score.
Right.
So what it did was it made it so that the box score wasn't just something that you had to wait for a game to play out, and it was only going to happen in linear time. But these tabletop games, and all of them, they allow you to dive inside the box score, mess around a little bit, pull out a lot of the wires, reconfigure things, and experiment. I mean, like, we could look at it like just even from a lineup perspective, right? Okay, if you were to go through baseball over and over again, at some point in time, there's going to be concern about stepping out from the norm, right? Teams have always had like a leadoff hitter who does this, a number 2 batter who does this, the best hitter batting third, this, right? And we weren't dealing with like the huge amounts of data and calculation that could synthesize some of the questions we wondered about lineup dynamics. So you would have just plodded along, because who would have stepped out of line? It was working. It made sense. It felt right intuitively that you'd want to have 2 guys up before your best hitter in the first inning.
Moving the best hitters to the number 2 spot.
But sim games allow to work through that, right?
Right.
You can do it 1,000 times
and see how it turns out.
You can do it 10,000 times.
Right.
You can play one game one way, go back the other way. You can start thinking in those terms, and all of a sudden you upend conventional thinking. But not because you're a disruptor, but because you have data.
Right.
And you've played it out. And you're not having to do it with only folks on the field to pull it off. You can run these games because they're reliable. This is the key point, because they're reliable simulators. They're realistic. The way the mechanics of the simulators, particularly yours, allows for a real game style that involves actual probabilities, and therefore in huge sets, while we talk about the fun of a bizarre play and everything like that, those happen, but in huge sets of doing this over time, you're going to learn a lot about the actual probability and play out of games that will influence how you then go actually do a real game.
Right.
And I think lineups are a big part of that. So again, like, if you ask me like how have tabletop games influenced or changed baseball, I mean, the answer is as simple as like, how does oxygen change baseball? How does advances in medicine change baseball? That not all these things are created equal, but they all come from the sense of the more you're able to do something, and the more you're able to just dive in and experiment in a sandbox of ideas, the better you're going to be when you emerge from it with more information to then apply. That's what it's given us.
Great. One last thing, your favorite play mode. So we're talking about multiplayer draft leagues.
Yeah.
Season replays. A new twist is we just came out with as played season replays, and what that is, so when you go through the schedule on that actual date that you're playing, you will have the exact same starting pitchers and the exact same lineups in your season replay.
That might be fun. Or that sounds really intriguing. My experience mostly has been like just creating, on the tabletop with dream lineups or curious lineups or, theme lineups, and playing with my son. So it hasn't been like a mode so much as just what we were able to create that day. And sometimes, to be honest, sometimes it's what we had on hand. Like if we didn't have the whole spectrum of cards available, it's just what we had. We would play from that.
Well, that kind of goes into like series mode, because it's like a single game or best of 7 or
very
whatever.
Similar to that.
Yeah, and you could like draft your own teams if you wanted to.
We should have drafted. I think we just kind of scrambled and grabbed.
Yeah, okay.
But
the drafting, that's like a huge pull in this whole thing. People, like, that's just like the most important day of the year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is the draft day.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It's cool. It's a good way to do it.
Yeah. So, well, thanks again,
Yeah,
Derrick.
thank you. Yeah.
Great, and
Thanks.
we'll be seeing more of you. Thanks.
Yeah, you bet.